So there was a little disagreement early on about how much we should work and how hard we should work.
They shut him out of the band he helped build. They erased his contributions. They turned old friends into strangers. At 77, Don Felder finally breaks his silence on the real reason behind his bitter fallout with Don Henley. The truth is more shocking than fans ever imagined. Betrayal, million-dollar lawsuits, and decades of silence between two music legends. Join us as we uncover the shocking details that changes everything. When Don Felder was recruited to join the Eagles in 1974, the band was already on the rise, led by Don Henley. The group was a mix of country rock, folk, and California cool, quickly becoming a staple of the 70s rock scene. But from the very beginning, there were signs that not everything in the band would be as harmonious as their music. Felder, who had been a session guitarist before joining the Eagles, was brought in to complete the band's signature sound with his lead guitar skills. His contribution was immediately felt on songs like Hotel California, which would go on to become one of the defining tracks of the band's career. However, while his talents were crucial to the band's success, Felder's role within the group was always a bit more complicated. Henley, the primary songwriter and creative force behind the Eagles, was known for his tight control over the band's direction. In interviews, Felder has spoken about how, despite his significant contributions, he often felt sidelined in terms of creative control and decision-making. This tension would eventually lead to a rift within the band, one that would grow more pronounced over the years. From the outset, the dynamic between the three men was a delicate one. While Felder was often the quiet one, the ever-present tension between Henley and Frey, who were close friends, created an environment that would eventually boil over into conflict. Felder wasn't the only band member to feel like an outsider, but his situation was unique in that he was an official member of the band, yet never fully felt like an equal to Henley and Frey. As the Eagles rose to superstardom throughout the mid to late 70s, so too did the tension between the band members. Hotel California, released in 1976, was a massive commercial success and cemented the Eagles as one of the biggest rock bands of all time. The album's title track, which Felder co-wrote with Henley and Frey, would become an anthem of the era. But behind the scenes, things were far from peaceful. During this time, Felder and Henley were starting to clash over creative control. Henley and Frey had the final say on most matters, from songwriting to the band's direction, while Felder, despite his pivotal role in creating some of their greatest hits, was often left out of the most important decisions. Felder has pointed to this lack of control as a major source of frustration, especially when it came to the business side of things. Henley was seen as the primary driving forces behind the band's financial decisions, and Felder felt that he wasn't being compensated fairly for his contributions. By the late 70s, Felder was feeling like a third wheel in the band, with Henley and Frey becoming more entrenched in their positions as the band's primary decision-makers. While they were busy creating the Eagles brand, Felder felt more and more like an outsider. The Eagles' breakup was anything but smooth. In 2001, after years of rising tension and unresolved issues, Don Felder was unceremoniously fired from the band. The reason? According to Felder, he had been forced out by Henley and Frey over creative and financial disputes. The exact details of his dismissal were murky, but what followed was a highly publicized legal battle between Felder and his former bandmates. The lawsuit was the culmination of years of frustration. Felder had accused Henley and Frey of unfair business practices, including withholding royalties and making decisions without consulting him. He claimed that their divide-and-conquer strategy created an unhealthy environment within the band, ultimately leading to his departure. In a tell-all interview, Felder explained how Henley and Frey had been plotting against him for years, taking control over the band's finances and creative direction without giving him a fair say. While Henley and Frey publicly defended their actions, claiming that Felder's behavior had become disruptive, Felder's side of the story painted a different picture. According to him, Henley and Frey were trying to squeeze him out for years, even before the lawsuit. The legal battle dragged on for some time, and while Felder eventually reached a settlement, the emotional scars from the experience would remain for a long time. The Eagles, despite the lawsuit, continued to tour and record music, but Felder's absence was felt. Fans were left wondering what could have been, as the band carried on without one of its key members. The legal settlement prevented Felder from speaking out in detail, but his silence only added to the mystery surrounding the true nature of the breakup. In 2007, Don Felder released his memoir, Heaven and Hell, My Life in the Eagles. The book was highly anticipated, as it promised to reveal the true story behind his departure from the band, and it didn't disappoint. Felder wasted no time in airing his grievances with Henley and Frey, offering a behind-the-scenes look at the dysfunction that plagued the band. Felder's memoir revealed shocking details about his time in the Eagles, including the famous physical altercation between him and Frey. According to Felder, tensions had reached a boiling point during a concert, with Frey confronting him on stage. The situation escalated quickly, and a physical confrontation ensued. While this incident was never fully confirmed by Henley or Frey, Felder's account painted a picture of a band in deep turmoil. The memoir also delved into Felder's growing dissatisfaction with the band's financial situation. He felt that Henley and Frey were making the lion's share of the money, leaving him with a much smaller share despite his crucial role in the band's success. Felder described a culture of secrecy and control that left him feeling like a mere pawn in the Eagles' empire. Beyond the business issues, Felder's book also explored the emotional toll that his time in the Eagles had taken on him. He spoke candidly about his personal struggles, his battles with loneliness, and the pain of being ostracized from the band that had been his family for so long. The memoir painted a picture of a fractured group, held together by success but torn apart by egos, money, and power struggles. In 2023, Don Felder spoke out again, giving fans a deeper look into his feelings about Henley and the Eagles. This time, he didn't hold back. In a radio interview, Felder opened up about the frustration he still feels over how things ended with the band. He admitted that while he harbors no animosity towards the late Glenn Frey, the feelings of betrayal and unfair treatment from Henley are harder to let go of. Felder recalled the days leading up to his departure from the band, expressing how Henley's leadership style left him feeling marginalized. He said that while Henley was a talented and visionary musician, his approach to managing the band created an environment of division. According to Felder, Henley was more interested in controlling the band's direction than fostering a collaborative atmosphere, which is what led to the eventual fallout. Despite the years of tension, Felder maintained that he had no ill will toward the other members, especially Frey, who passed away in 2016. However, his bitterness toward Henley remained. Felder explained that he never felt like he had been given a fair chance to voice his opinions or contribute equally to the band's decisions. He also expressed regret that their relationship had deteriorated to the point of no return, especially given the history they shared. When Don Felder began airing his grievances in the media, particularly in his 2007 memoir, Don Henley responded in his usual calm and measured way, staying out of the emotional battles and instead focusing on maintaining the band's public image. Henley was always the more private and guarded of the two, and his retorts to Felder's claims were often more dismissive than confrontational. He tended to downplay the severity of their fallout, presenting it as a natural progression for a band that had already been through many changes over the years. In interviews, Henley's responses to Felder's accusations were usually brief. He pointed out that the Eagles were a business, and that Felder, despite his incredible talent, had become difficult to work with. Henley stressed that the band's decision to let Felder go was not about personal animosity, but about the direction the band needed to go. Henley's focus remained on the legacy of the Eagles, rather than the drama that had unfolded behind the scenes. Henley has often referred to Felder's departure as a necessary step for the Eagles' future. He has said that the band needed to move forward and that Felder's inability to compromise on creative differences had created too much tension. Henley's stance was clear. The Eagles were a unit, and Felder, while an essential part of the band during its glory years, had become a disruptive influence. According to Henley, the creative and personal differences between the members were simply too great to overcome. However, Henley's public responses to Felder's memoir and interviews have not been entirely without emotion. There have been hints of frustration in his interviews, particularly when he described the band's earlier years and the personal relationships involved. Despite this, Henley remains steadfast in his belief that the Eagles were greater than any one individual, including Felder. In his eyes, the band had to continue, and that meant moving on without him. The feud between Felder and Henley, along with the band's other internal struggles, has undeniably impacted the Eagles' legacy. While the band's music is timeless, the behind-the-scenes drama has always been a part of their story. The tension between Felder and Henley has often overshadowed their creative achievements, and it remains a point of curiosity for fans and media alike. Over the years, many have wondered what could have been if the band had managed to work through their issues instead of breaking apart. Despite the animosity and public spats, the Eagles' music has continued to captivate generations of fans. Songs like Hotel California, Take It Easy, and Desperado are still some of the most iconic rock tracks in history. But the drama surrounding the band has added another layer of intrigue to their story, making it all the more compelling. Fans have often debated whether the band's greatest achievements were marred by the very tensions that brought it to the brink of collapse. The Eagles' success without Felder, especially in the post-reunion era, has shown the band's resilience. Henley and Frey were able to carry on, bringing in new members like Joe Walsh and Timothy B. Schmidt, and continuing to sell out arenas across the globe. Still, there's always been a sense that something was missing, an unspoken piece of the puzzle. Felder's absence was palpable, and it's clear that he was an integral part of the Eagles' sound, even if his role in the band's later years became increasingly strained. For many fans, the idea of a fully reunited Eagles, with Felder back in the fold, remains a tantalizing thought. While a reunion would likely never happen, given the hard feelings and Felder's own statements about his departure, the question lingers: could the band have been even greater if they had managed to reconcile their differences? At 77 years old, Don Felder has spent the last few decades reflecting on his time with the Eagles, his solo career, and the legacy of the band that made him famous. His views today seem more tempered, more measured, and less about the anger that characterized some of his earlier comments. Felder has stated that he's grateful for the success he had with the Eagles, but he's also admitted that it's difficult to look back without some bitterness over how things ended. In recent interviews, Felder has expressed a sense of acceptance regarding his time with the Eagles, even as he still grapples with the unresolved issues from his departure. He's proud of the music he created with the band, but the personal and professional conflicts continue to weigh on him. The death of Glenn Frey in 2016 seemed to have softened Felder's outlook on the past, and in a rare moment of vulnerability, he spoke about the emotional toll Frey's passing took on him. Felder has also been very candid about his experiences after leaving the Eagles. He's enjoyed success in his solo career, particularly with his 2012 album American Rock and Roll, but it's clear that his time with the Eagles was a defining chapter in his life. He's often remarked that, despite everything that happened, the Eagles' music will always be a part of him. He remains active in the music world, performing and connecting with fans who still remember his contributions to some of rock's greatest anthems. In his more reflective moments, Felder has discussed the possibility of reconciliation. While he acknowledges the difficulty of repairing a relationship with Henley, he has expressed a desire for closure. Whether that closure comes through private conversations or continued public statements, Felder is ready to move forward, but not without recognizing the unresolved tension that has defined so much of his relationship with Henley. Ultimately, at 77, Don Felder is looking back at a career that was both incredibly rewarding and personally painful. His contribution to the Eagles remains undeniable, but so too does the history of discord that has surrounded him. As fans, we are left to wonder if the bitter feud between Felder and Henley will ever be resolved, or if it will remain a permanent shadow over the Eagles' legacy. Don Felder's decision to finally break his silence on Don Henley and the Eagles is a powerful reminder of the complex dynamics that exist in any successful band. While the world remembers the Eagles for their music, their story is one filled with betrayal, lawsuits, and unresolved bitterness. But after all these years, Felder's reflections offer a glimpse into the human side of rock and roll's biggest rivalry. So, what's next for the Eagles' legacy? Could this new chapter in Don Felder's story provide the closure fans have been longing for? Or will the unresolved tension between him and Henley continue to cast a shadow over the band's history? One thing's for certain, the Eagles' story is far from over, and the battle between these two musical giants will remain one of the most fascinating and unresolved sagas in rock history. What do you think? Could Felder and Henley ever reconcile? Or is the damage done forever? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for further updates.